Hello everyone, it's me Clayton. I just finished watching the latest episode of The Boys, Season 2, Episode 6. Now, when it comes to this episode of The Boys, it not only has a funny Golden Girls reference in it, it also happens to basically tell us more information about Frenchie, give us more information about Stormfront's origins, and it also even has Lamplighter in it, played by Shawn Ashmore, who you might remember as Iceman, or as Jack Joyce in Quantum Break. Well, let's get to the story, shall we? The story is, for this episode, while the Deep happens to try to recruit A-Train into the Church of the Collective, Mother's Milk, Frenchie, and Kimiko are all infiltrating a superhero medical ward dressed as orderlies, while Huey, Starlight, and Billy the Butcher have to deal with the situation outside of the institution. While inside, the boys find that Lamplighter, a former member of the boys who announced his retirement, is working there because because the Seven are actually using a version of Compound V to turn various people into either superheroes or super terrorists. And Lamplighter is used to burn the evidence, which is to say, burn the failed experiments alive. And you might recognize that Lamplighter also is the one that ended up killing Mallory's children and grandchildren. So Frenchie is not very pleased to see him. But we find that Lamplighter isn't the bloodthirsty monster that we expected him to be. In fact, he was trying to kill the leader of the boys, not a bunch of kids, and he even feels guilt over doing it. So we actually have an interesting take on Lamplighter here, as I always saw Lamplighter as just like a one-dimensional, completely psychopathic bad guy in the original comics, whereas in the show, I do kind of sympathize with him as a guy in a really bad situation, especially since he has to work with Stormfront. On top of that, we do get some cameos from characters who were in the comics but don't get a major role in the series. Like, there's this Russian superhero that has one of the most disgusting abilities that I've ever seen, but it really does fit the boys' R-rated style. And trust me, I won't spoil what he gets to do in the episode, but let's just say his superhero name is extremely fitting in its innuendo. But also, we do get some flashbacks regarding Frenchie's past and his time with Cherie and a guy named Jay, and I do think it fleshes out Frenchie pretty well. I always liked Frenchie as a character, but I always felt that he should get more development when it comes to his side of the story. And on top of that, we also see Starlight and Billy the Butcher getting to know each other a bit more. And considering that Billy the Butcher put a sniper rifle shot into her chest twice last season, I figured they wouldn't be on the best of terms, and they aren't. But I do think that Starlight has an interesting idea about him, seeing him as no different than Homelander considering his prejudice. Yeah, I understand. His hatred of Homelander is completely understandable, but him seeing every single superhero and person who's using Compound V as a liability or as subhuman is definitely not a good mindset to have. And who knows, maybe Billy the Butcher here won't end up doing the things that he does in the comics in the future, but we'll see when it comes to that. On top of that, Stormfront reveals that not only is she over 100 years old, but she also happens to know Frederick Vought quite well. In fact, she worked with him back in 1919. And on top of that, we also end up learning that she was not only a superhero who lived back then, but she also was one of the first people, if not the first, to use Compound V successfully. And her and Frederick Vought actually had a kid. So when you have that alongside Queen Maeve's romantic partner Elena finding out about the incident on the plane last season, you have a lot of interesting directions you can go for the last two episodes of the season. And I do think whatever they'll use Shawn Ashmore for the latter half of the season is definitely going to be interesting. So it definitely could lead to a lot of interesting events to happen in the finale. But for now, I definitely think it's another strong episode of The Boys. See you next time.